In Bhagavatam, Maharaj Parikshit had placed a very important question to Shukadeva Goswami. He had asked him about two very important duties. One, he asked that, my dear Shukadeva Goswami, kindly explain what in general for all humanity, in all circumstances, at all times, what is the most important duty of mankind? And then he also asked about what is the particular duty of a man, of a person who is about to die. So these two important questions were placed. And Shukadeva Goswami answered. He said, yes, the most important duty of a person in all circumstances, in all time, is to glorify, to chant, to hear about, and to remember the activities of the Supreme Lord. Shrotavyah, kirtitavyas, smartavyascha ichhata abhayam. Anyone who wants to get rid of fearful material existence in all circumstances, he must glorify, hear about, and remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he said similarly, for a person who is about to die, it is the same thing. Now, Parikshit Maharaj had only 7 days left. Shukadeva Goswami has already told him, my dear Parikshit, the most important aspect of human life and for a person who is about to die is he should hear about, he should glorify the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then, knowing the emergency that I am going to die within 7 days, Parikshit Maharaj could have inquired, my dear Shukadeva Goswami, please explain to me about the Rasa Leela of the Lord. Yeah, I have only 7 days left. And these are the direct activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And you will be surprised. Maharaj Parikshit started inquiring from Shukadeva Goswami that I have heard the Supreme Lord through his different energies enters in this material creation. Please explain to me the process of creation, how the Supreme Lord through varieties of his different energies creates this material manifestation. So Prabhupada explains, actually this is a gradual way of appreciating the activities of the Supreme Lord. One cannot directly understand the intimate activities of the Supreme Lord with the gopis before understanding how the Supreme Lord creates, how he is related to this material world. And in 7 days, even though he had 7 days. In 7 days he heard complete Srimad Bhagavatam, starting from the first canto up to 12th canto, beginning from the description of creation and gradually going higher and higher, then to the 10th canto, where he heard about the different personal pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, actually, this is a proper way of hearing. Because one may think Srimad Bhagavatam, which is considered to be Paramahamsa Samhita, why does it talk about how the senses were generated, how taste was generated, how smell was generated, how all these different material elements were generated? What I have got to do with, what this has got to do with Krishna Katha? We want to hear Krishna Katha, and you are explaining, Bhagavatam is explaining creation Katha. How is it related? Isn't it? Yes. We are at the present moment bewildered by external energy. We have no understanding of internal energy of the Lord. So when our position is being bewildered by external energy, Maya of the Lord, we have to understand what is this Maya and how it is related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is very important. So, unless we understand the source of this Maya, how the Supreme Lord has created this whole illusion, we will be bewildered. We will not have a clue about the spiritual world, in comparison to which this material world is nothing. You see? So, we are in so much of awe and reverence about this whole material creation. So, the first thing to understand is that with which we are so much bewildered in this material world, that is nothing but the different energies of the Lord working so wonderfully in this material world. And that is nothing but ekena amshena sthito jagat. It's just one small portion of the Supreme Lord which is acting so wonderfully. Imagine if 1/4 creation of the Lord is so beautiful, so wonderful, you can imagine what will be the real creation, the balance of 3/4 creation, which is permanent creation of the Lord. This manifestation, which is 1/4, it is sometimes created and sometimes it is annihilated. So we can just imagine, what about the spiritual creation of the Lord? So that is why it is important that we should understand what constitutes this material existence. So we saw so beautifully, Lord Kapila has been explaining how this material creation in step by step takes place. How foolish the material scientists are. They think everything is just created by some kind of chance, some kind of explosion. Big Bang happened and this whole beautiful creation came into existence. And in comparison, you see how Lord Kapila has been explaining how this material creation systematically, scientifically it is created. See the modern science, how it says, Big Bang happened, whole creation happened. So no more explanation. How eyes came into existence, how tongue came into existence, no explanation. All by chance. This is their modern science. And Bhagavatam, which is considered to be some kind of stories by these people, fiction, is explaining very scientifically how this whole creation came into existence. See? So we saw in the previous verses, Lord Kapila explaining, first element of material creation is false ego, ahankara. It is because of ahankara, whole material creation comes into existence, in step by step. So ahankara comes into existence. What is the meaning of ahankara? It is the energy of the Lord which makes us to identify, forget our real existence, real identity, and identify with something else. Just to understand, in our common term, how do we understand? Suppose one is drunk, he drinks. The moment a person is drunk, he forgets his original existence and he lives in illusory world, correct? Which is not his real self. Similarly, this energy of the Lord, Maya Shakti, Maya, that which is not, it creates an illusion of forgetting our real spiritual existence, that I am spirit soul, and illusory existence of I am matter. You see? So it begins with ahankara. And then we saw Lord Kapila explaining how ahankara is agitated by the energy of the Lord, and in this agitation, ahankara, it is mixing with varieties of energies like passion, ignorance, goodness, and it is giving rise to some material elements, right? We also, mind is produced. So till now we were on the subtle material elements. How the subtle material elements, which you cannot perceive grossly, with your senses you cannot perceive grossly. False ego you cannot perceive, that is a subtle material existence. Intelligence you cannot perceive grossly, and mind, thoughts are there, all those things, you cannot perceive them grossly. You cannot see where is mind, you cannot see, you cannot feel mind like that. So these were subtle material creations. Now Lord Kapila starts explaining about gross material elements, how they come into existence. Now, at this point, if you look at Bhagavad Gita, which clearly explains about 3 subtle and 5 gross material elements, and from the mixing of these 8, all other elements will be produced. Krishna says these 8 gross and subtle elements are my bhinna prakriti. See, bhumir, apo, analo, vayu, khama mano buddhir evacha, ahankaram iti ye bhinna prakriti ashtadha. These 8 constitute my separated energy. Separated means the Lord has given it to us that yes, you enjoy, be happy with them. It is separated from the Lord in that sense. So, now we saw ahankara, how it is produced. We saw buddhi, how it is produced. Manaha, how it is produced. Senses, how it is produced. Now, Lord Kapila starts explaining these gross material elements, how they are produced. So, in the previous verses we saw the first gross material element, which is in a subtle form, is produced in the form of sound. First gross material element in the form of, which is still subtle, is produced in the form of sound. How it is produced? From ignorance. And that is how we can see. When false ego is agitated with ignorance, it produces material sound. And from material sound, this whole material existence grossly comes into existence. This is also said in Bible. The sound was with God, and from the sound this whole material creation was manifested. See? So, from the sound, material sound, this material existence comes into existence. From spiritual sound, this material existence can be dissolved. From material sound, this existence, we are bound in this material world. And by spiritual sound, which will awaken the soul, this material existence is vanquished, gone. Sound is so important. You see. So, now you see what all happens from sound. From sound, gradually it manifests into space, which is called kham or ether. You can see the sound, you can hear. If there is no space, you cannot hear the sound. If there is no ether, you cannot hear the sound. So we talked about in the last class, one of our classes, we talked about space, isn't it? We were talking how the air is occupying space, and space is required for us for material activities, right? How all these material elements are very important. For these are all our field of activities in which we will act. So how all the different elements are important. Mind is also important. Now in the mind we will think. With mind we think, then we feel, then we act. Isn't it? So how our field of activities are created, all these are very beautifully described. So we saw that from sound, ether is produced or space is produced. It is called kham. Another interesting phenomenon which we can understand from the Vedic literature is, from sound, gross objects can be perceived. Even though gross object we may not be able to see. The moment you hear a sound, you know the sound is coming from someone. Correct. When the sound is coming, you want to approach that place. So you know the sound is coming from someone. It gives us a subtle indication of a form. May not be gross. Gross is only when you see, oh, this person was vibrating the sound. Right? Suppose some shouting sound you hear from the outside. You may speculate. Some, bursting sound you hear. So you may start speculating, what is this sound? Maybe some accident has taken place. Maybe somebody has bombed something. Isn't it? Then you have to go out and then you have to see what exactly happened. Then you will come to know. But from sound, tangible forms can be perceived. You can start perceiving at least. So, gross existence comes into existence from sound in that way. That we should first of all try to understand. So now if you see in ether, there is Shabda. Then from ether, air is produced. From space, first there is space, and that is produced by sound, and from ether or space, air is produced. Now just try to understand how beautifully this is described. In ether, only Shabda is seen. You can perceive only Shabda. You cannot perceive touch. Space you cannot feel with your touch. Can you feel space? You cannot feel. There is no touch as of now. But when space produces air, then you can start feeling the touch. When the air blows and you feel cool or you feel warm when hot air is blowing. In North India, if you go during summer season, it is called Loo. Very hot air blows and you should not go out so much in that. You'll fall sick. Similarly, in cold season when you go out, then you perceive cold wind. Right? So, that means Sparsha comes from air. So, in air, Shabda is also there and Sparsha is also there. In sky or in ether or kham, what we call space, there is only Shabda, only sound is there. As you go, you will find they will contain whatever was contained earlier. It is just like in giving an example. If you are graduate, then you have completed 12, you have passed your 10th also. Automatically it is included. If you are 10th, you are not graduate, need not be a graduate. If you are only 12th, you are still not graduate. Similarly, you will find in earth, all 5 things are there. Whereas in sky, which is subtle, only Shabda is there. Then when air is there, Sparsha comes. From air, fire is produced. What comes? In the fire, what is the extra element? Rupa, yes, form. So, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa. From fire, water is produced. In water, what is there? Rasa. Rasoham apsu kaunteya. Taste comes from water. Actually, it's a fact. The same sambar you eat in Bangalore and the same sambar you eat in North India with different kind of water, taste is completely different. Even though spices are there, everything is there, but taste comes from water. Rasoham apsu kaunteya. You see? From fire, water was produced. From water, earth is produced. And in earth there is smell, gandha. So in earth there is shabda. You can feel some volcanic sometimes when there is, sound. There is sparsha, you can feel the earth. There is rupa, it has a form. There is rasa and there is gandha. My daughter was reading one poem yesterday in Hindi. So she was asking me to translate. And there the Kavi, the poet, is wondering how earth contains everything. Magical, he's saying, the earth is so magical that you put, mango seed and mango taste comes out of that. So what earth mixes, that it has got everything. Fragrance it has got taste in it. That is why in Bhagavatam, earth is called Sarva Kama Dughamai. All our necessities it can supply. All our necessities it can supply. See how beautifully you can find Bhagavatam very scientifically explains about how this material existence comes into form. So in today's verse, if you see, Prabhupada is discussing about air. Right? In the previous one, we had talked about space. Now from space, from sky, air is produced. How space can be perceived, we saw. Internally space can be perceived. The different vayus are moving inside, creating different activity, different space is available. For that space is required. Externally in our activity, space is required. Now Lord Kapila is saying how you can perceive the air, isn't it? So Prabhupada is giving the example. I just read that very beautifully. Prabhupada says, so softness and hardness, cold and heat are distinguishing attributes of touch. See, how can you perceive air? By touch sensation, sparsha. How? Sometimes the touch is soft. You lie down on bare ground like brahmacharis. It is very hard, right? You can feel that. And you lie down on cushion instead of ground, you feel soft. Correct? Same thing. Cold, if you touch something, cold water, you feel it is very cold. And the same water, when it is hot, you feel it is hot. Or when the wind is blowing, the touch sensation, basically. That's how you find Lord Krishna is saying that actually it is all by touch sensation. Don't get carried away by touch sensation. Matra sparshastu kaunteya. It is sparsha which is creating all happiness and distress in your life. And the whole yogic process is to come out of this touch sensation. Understanding this touch has nothing to do with me. The same fan gives me pleasure in hot season, the same fan gives me distress in cold season. It is just the sparsha which the soul is feeling, identifying, which is giving it pain and pleasure. So what is Krishna's advice? For the time being, when you are materially affected, you cannot do anything else. You are not on the platform of spiritual realization, where you can see that, no, this touch and whether it is hot, whether it is cold, I have nothing to do with them. I am spirit soul. No, it's not just by thinking. When actually you come to that platform, you will not feel those pains. It's a fact. Prahlad Maharaj did not feel the pains of bodily pleasures and pain because he was on that platform. Sometimes with medical aid, it is possible. You can cut off the space, you can cut off the circulation of the air, and you don't feel those pain and pleasure. See, this feeling comes from air. And if you can manipulate somehow or other with some medical chloroform or something like that, then the soul does not feel that touch. And then you don't feel pain and pleasure. But that is temporarily done. For the time being, some chloroform you give to some part, and then operation is done, you don't feel anything. After some time, when that effect is gone, you start feeling, my God, my hand is paining so much. Such a huge operation was performed. Years together it will be paining again and again, you have to take medicine. But there is a method. There is a method. By self-realization, you can become completely out of touch of all these material elements. Understanding the soul has nothing to do with them. See, very scientifically actually you can see that. When the mind is completely absorbed in Krishna, then the mind it is not on any of these material objects. You will not feel the pain and pleasure of this material world. Sometimes, even materially, this phenomenon you can see. Materially, let us say you are very happy about some incident which has happened, and you are rushing to your house for, let us say you have got some degree or something, and you are very happy, you want to, tell your parents that I got certain thing. And he is going, and in the middle, let us say, some kind of, there is a pinprick, some thorn has gone inside, and he is in so much happiness that his mind is so much absorbed in that incident, his mind does not even go on that small cut which has happened. So materially, if we can see, if the mind can be absorbed somewhere else rather than from the pain and pleasure of this body, it is possible to be out of pain and pleasure of this material body. How much spiritually it can be true. Just try to understand this. That is how Haridas Thakur was able to take beatings on his body on 21 marketplaces, because his mind was completely on Krishna. So, this is how we can see. And of course, today time is not there, otherwise we would have discussed about, very beautifully Prabhupada is explaining how this air circulation inside our body is so important to maintain good health according to Ayurveda. I'll just read that portion and maybe sometime later we will find time to discuss. We can perceive the action of air when the branches of a tree move or when dry leaves on the ground collect together. So, it was said, see how Prabhupada is explaining. I'll read from the translation. Action of air is exhibited in movement. So, Prabhupada is explaining, yes, from movement you can feel air. Branches moving, you can feel. Leaves moving, collecting on the ground, you can feel, right? So, movement. Second, similarly, it is only by the action of the air that body moves. So, movement of the body, important. When the air circulation is impeded, many diseases result. Because movement, air means movement has to be there. If you impede movement of the air, lots of diseases will be the result. Circulation of air has to be proper inside the body. Moment, because of whatever reason it is impeded, body will fall sick. When the air circulation is impeded, many diseases result. Paralysis, nervous breakdown, madness, and other diseases are actually due to insufficient circulation of air. So, great hint. If somebody is having paralysis and if he can manage the different circulation of the air inside his body properly, then actually there will be no paralysis. Madness, many neurological diseases, all because of different inhibiting the circulation of airs. In the Ayurvedic system, these diseases are treated on the basis of circulation. So Prabhupada is advising, if from the beginning one takes care of the process of air circulation, such diseases cannot take place. From Ayurveda as well as from Bhagavatam, it is clear so many activities are going on internally and externally because of air alone. So we'll stop with this. Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.